Okay, that's when the descendants of Esau came in, took Jerusalem, and that was your Maccabees, who were Edomites. Okay, took Jerusalem, and that's where you get Hanukkah from. All right, and then Antiochus Epiphanes, who they thought was dead, he came and took the city back. Okay, and this is in 164 BCE. And then in that last verse in chapter 12, when it says, the angel said to Daniel, he said, "Go thy way, Daniel, for you shall lie at rest. And at the end of the days you shall stand in thy lot." Well, that's the end of the 2300 days spoken of in chapter 8, Daniel. Okay, and that was when those 2300 days were completed in 161 BCE. And like we said on the previous show, in 161 BCE, that's when Demetrius I, the nephew of Antiochus Epiphanes, okay, because Antiochus Epiphanes died of an epileptic fit in 163 BCE, which fulfilled the prophecy in chapter 8, Daniel. He would be broken. He's the little horn that had understanding of dark senses. He would be broken without hand. He died of an epileptic fit. Okay, and so Demetrius I, who had been a hostage in Rome, came and dethroned his cousin Antiochus V. Okay, Antiochus the Epiphanes' son, dethroned him. They had a civil war. He killed him, and he took control. And this is when Demetrius I, sent that letter, like we mentioned in the last show, to the children of Israel who were in Jerusalem, who had put the daily sacrifice back on after the 2300 days. The 2300 days started in 168 BCE, when Antiochus Epiphanes stopped the daily sacrifice and put the pig on the altar in worship of the sun. Okay, so the 2300 days ended in 161. Demetrius I came with his army, and when he looked down on the temple, he sent them a letter a week prior saying to the children of Israel that were still in the land, he said, "I'm not going to treat you like my uncle and my cousin had treated you. You know, we are all right." But when he got there in the midst of the week, he got there in the middle of the week. And when he looked down on the city, saw how peaceful and prosperous, peaceful it was and prosperous, he said, "I'm not going to allow this to go on." Now this is Daniel chapter 9, the last part of 26th verse and the 27th verse. And he destroyed the city and the sanctuary, as it says, okay, in chapter 9, Daniel. He destroyed the city and the sanctuary, and this is when that last, that second temple, that's when the second temple of Yah, that Zerubbabel and Yahushua and them built, and they finished building it in 516 BCE. That's when it was destroyed. Okay, they're not going to tell you this in history because Esau doesn't want people to know this. He's going to tell you it's the temple over in 70 AD CE. Okay, that was the temple was destroyed by Titus and Vespasian. But see, again, when you study this and you look at the historical account, Herod was the king in Jerusalem that built that temple that Titus and Vespasian destroyed. Herod, it tells you in history, was an Edomian. He was an Edomite. Okay? And this is when the Edomites, again, they rose up in the 2nd century BCE and started trying to keep the vision of Yah, which is the sacrifices. And this was prophesied in Daniel chapter 11, verse 14. Okay? 11:14, Daniel is speaking when it says, "In these days, during this time, the robbers of thy people shall exalt themselves to establish the vision, but they shall fall." Okay? And this is when, when that temple was destroyed in 70 AD CE that Herod built. Herod, okay? Again, that's when it was destroyed, and that's when, they stayed in land, they kept rebelling. And then again in 132 CE AD, Simon Bar Kokhba led a rebellion against Roman rule. It lasted 3 years. Simon Bar Kokhba was called the Messiah. Okay, he's called the Messiah. 100 years supposedly after this entity called Jesus lived, who was supposedly called the Messiah. Now, again, How many Messiahs do you have in regards to, you know what I'm saying, in that time period? So anointed, you know what I'm saying? Simon Bar Kokhba led a rebellion against Rome. They put it down in 135, and this is when, as it's spoken of in Malachi chapter 1 at the top, this is when Esau's diaspora began. Because he wasn't taken out of the land, he just was made to leave Jerusalem and the land of Israel, okay, by the Romans. And they renamed Jerusalem Aelia Capitolina. It was no longer called Jerusalem. And they didn't call the land Israel anymore. It was called Palestine. They went back to the old name. That's over in Genesis. They started calling it Palestine, Palestina. Okay? So the people in it, which you still had a remnant of the 10 tribes in it, they became known as Palestinians. Okay? Which they are called to this day. Okay? But again, here in the, when all this was going on, okay, Simon Bar Kokhba is called the Messiah. If Jesus supposedly lived 100 years later and all these occurrences took place around him, why would they be calling Simon Bar Kokhba the Messiah 100 years later? Wouldn't it still be Jesus if all these things occurred 100 years earlier? Okay? All right? I mean, it doesn't make sense. Okay? So again, Christianity didn't come on the scene. It wasn't invented. It wasn't legalized till 311. Now, you know, it was more than likely in existence. Esau brought it into play after 135 CE, because up until that point, Esau had been trying to gain the dominion, the rulership, with the sword. Okay, but he realized it's a segment of them, the illuminated ones, that realized they were not going to be able to get control with the sword themselves. So they had to come with subtlety, okay, with wisdom and understanding. And this is why, you understand, it says in chapter 47 Isaiah, Yah says, thy wisdom and understanding has perverted thee, because it's talking about the daughter of Babylon in 47th chapter of Isaiah. But again, who set up the daughter of Babylon, or the United States of America? The descendants of Esau. Isn't that what we are seeing today? Okay, with all of the economic collapse, the economic crash, the bailouts, who is perpetrating this? Isn't it the descendants of Esau, these international bankers that are led by the house of Rothschild? Okay? I mean, think about it. Look at your present administration. Like we said on the show we did last year, okay, 6 days after Barack Obama's election. Look at all the people around him. His advisors, Rahm Emanuel, Chief of Staff, David Axelrod, okay, Dennis Ross, okay. You understand it? These are all Edomites. Penny Pritzker, okay, was his financial campaign manager, and this has been, she's been that since 1992. Okay, so this is all plotted. This is all planned. So again, these are the descendants of Esau. So again, you follow, like we said on a previous show, and we still are waiting for this call. When I said, any of you out there, and this still holds, any of you out there, okay, that, you understand, have read the book of remembrance, the so-called Old Testament from Genesis through Malachi, you understand? Have you seen a prophecy that's prophesying that says Yah would bring his son on the scene, okay, named Jesus, at the beginning of the fourth kingdom of man, and then he would be crucified, hanged on a tree, because it says in the law that whoever's hanged on a tree is accursed of Yah. Now that's in the law, okay? And isn't this the story of this person, this mythical person? That's what it is. You understand? Wasn't he hanged on a tree? Okay?